Welcome to Inside Ag. I'm your host, Savannah Peterson. Today, I have a little bit of a different episode coming to you. I sat down with two Kansas Farm Bureau members who have been very involved in the organization in the last few months. We've learned a little bit more about what they have been involved in and how members like yourself can get involved as well. To kick things off, I sat down with Brad Neihues, who was a voting delegate at the American Farm Bureau Annual Conference, which took place in Salt Lake City at the end of January. Well, welcome, Brad, and thanks for joining us today. Let's talk a little bit about your experience at the American Farm Bureau Annual Conference. But first, tell us a little bit more about yourself. How are you involved in agriculture and Kansas Farm Bureau?
I'm Brad Neihues. I'm out here in the southwestern part of the state. I'm actually in Hugoton, Kansas, which is Stevens County. It's way down in the southwest corner. Kansas is a big state, and we're quite a ways from Manhattan. In fact, it's 315 miles from our place to headquarters. So it's a little bit of a jaunt to get to Manhattan. I actually grew up in the northeastern part of the state around Topeka. Met my wife at K-State. Her family has been out in Stevens County for over 100 years. In fact, they have a century farm out there, homesteaded in 1907. And I'm out there. I'm involved in agriculture out there. I've been in crop consulting, currently selling seed for a company. And we also run a cow-calf operation on my wife's family's farm and ranch. So we've got pretty deep roots out there in agriculture. I got involved with Farm Bureau. Oh man, it's been a while, maybe 10, 15 years ago. One of the guys that was the president of the board asked me, he goes, "Hey man, I need somebody to step on this board and get some new blood." And so I got on at first, as just a part of the board. And through the years, I've had opportunities to further my position in Farm Bureau. I've been on the Natural Resources Committee. I've been a part of several leads trips to Washington, D.C. I've also been recently involved with the Resolutions Committee. I just got off that committee, served for 3 years. It was a great experience. So, it's been a great opportunity for me. I'm currently the president of our board, been that the local board for several years. But I've done quite a few things within Farm Bureau in the last 10 or 15 years. It's been a good deal.
Sounds like it's kept you busy. And one thing that Farm Bureau has kept you busy with is attending the annual American Farm Bureau conference in Salt Lake City back in January. Looking at the schedule, it looked like it was full of lots of educational workshops, general sessions, and tours. But before you went to Salt Lake City, what were you most excited about for this year's conference?
Well, yeah, this year, unfortunately, this is the second time I've been to the annual meeting. A couple of years ago, I went to Atlanta. This year, went to Salt Lake City. I had to cut mine a little short. I was pretty strapped on time, so I didn't get a chance to partake in some of the meetings and the workshops and everything else. But I have done those before, and they are a great opportunity to learn, see what some of the current issues are, and just network with people. I probably get more out of just networking with people in general from across the country than anything, because even though we may live in different states, we all kind of face the same issues. They may be different, but everybody has their own challenges in their different areas, whether it's the Midwest, the East Coast, or the West Coast. It's always nice to get a different perspective about what other issues people are facing. And many times, like in the state of Kansas, we face a lot of water issues. That's about a national issue, honestly. You could go about anywhere and say there's water issues, whether too much or too little. So I do look forward when I get there to meeting with people from different areas.
Sounds like a great opportunity for that. I know you said you didn't really get to do a lot of the conference experience this year, but can you kind of give us an overview of what the conference looks like for most of the attendees?
Yeah, there's a lot of different workshops you can go to that can cover a range of topics. They also have a lot of tours set up you can do and go across. Especially like in Salt Lake City, there may be some things there that you can check out that's very popular to that area and region, and then there's also opportunities to get together for dinners and suppers and things like that with other people across the area. So I wish I could have had a chance to do some of those this year. It just didn't work out. But I encourage anybody to go in the future. It is a great time, and it's a very well attended conference, there was a lot of delegates there. I can't remember what the number was, but there was. It was. I mean, there is because it's across the whole United States, so it's a good time.
Looking at the schedule, it sounds like a busy week for everybody. But one thing that you were really instrumental on for this year's conference was the business session, which really helped shape policy in Washington, D.C. And during that session, you were a voting member. Talk to us about how you become a voting member for Kansas.
Yeah, so I am part of the resolutions committee, and there's 10 people across the state that are on that make up 10 different districts. I happen to represent District 9 for basically Southwest Kansas. And we've got to send 5 voting delegates every year to the American Farm Bureau Conference annual meeting. And I basically go every other year. So I was on that committee for 3 years. I went to Atlanta a couple years ago, and this year I went to Salt Lake City.
You offered a minor change to a bill. Can you tell us a little bit more about the bill and the proposed change that you made?
Sure. So that you never know if you're going to get up and approach the president or Zippy or not when you're there. We actually, what had happened prior to the business session getting started, we had, I believe, in 225 in the risk management and the crop insurance, I believe this came out of one of our Kansas committees, but there was some language added in there talking about classifying mechanically seeded wheat as a cover crop. And this could also be used for their cover crop programs and also crop insurance. Well, we knew there was an issue with that with some of the delegates from Illinois. So they actually sought me out and said, hey, we kind of have an issue with some of your language there. And we talked about it. We came to a conclusion that if we changed one word in the proposed amendment, we just changed one word in that. They were good with it. I went to the floor, offered this change to the amendment, and everybody voted on it, and it was fine. So literally one word is what got it passed. So it was good. It was kind of they were a little concerned about some of the language, double dipping with crop insurance and cover crop programs, but taking one word and put or in there, just adding the word or to cover crop programs or crop insurance changed everything. So they were a little concerned there may have been some double dipping or whatever. So that changed everything. I don't know. It's interesting to see how everything comes together there and talking with other people and what their concerns are, and then you can come to a compromise.
Can you maybe talk a little bit more about some of the other topics that were discussed during this business session?
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of discussion about H-2A workers. That was one thing that we spent quite a bit of time on. And, labor is always an issue, especially in agriculture. So there was quite a bit of discussion on that. Another topic was more to do with some of the banking issues between farm credit and just your traditional banks. Farm credit does have a few advantages that some traditional banks do as far as ag lending. So there was some discussion on that, maybe some potential policy changes they got proposed. What for me, it's interesting. It could be about anything. Honestly, I've been on a couple of years ago. One of the hot topics was more livestock based, and there was some of that too. I mean, there was several topics, but it can be a wider range of anything at those. So that's what keeps it interesting to me is what is the pulse of the country as far as what's going on, and and most of those are going to pertain to about anybody.
Well, that sounds like there is a lot of topics discussed. Okay, Brad, my last question for you. As you have had time to kind of reflect on this year's conference, what was the highlight for you?
Oh, geez, probably I kind of said this before, kind of the highlight is just getting to go and meet with different people across the area. But also, I mean, it is a little bit nerve-wracking when you actually have to get up in front of the president and propose changes. because there's a lot of people in that room, and you are addressing the president of the American Farm Bureau, and I enjoyed that, and also just working with the fellow people from Illinois. I thought that was kind of neat to be able to work with them and get to know them better and things. So that was probably for me the highlight of the conference.
Well, Annual Farm Bureau Conference sounds like a great opportunity to really network and get to
Yes.
learn a lot about agriculture across the state. Brad, thank you so much for joining me here on Inside Ag. Next, I sat down with Micheal Speer, who was the Young Farmers and Ranchers Chairman for the 2024 conference, which just concluded at the beginning of February here in Manhattan, Kansas. Micheal, welcome to Inside Ag. I know last episode that you joined us, you talked a little bit about your background, but just for those that weren't able to listen to that one, can you give us just a little refresh update about your farming background and involvement in Kansas Farm Bureau?
Yes. So my wife, Amber, and I, we have 2 kids. Ellie's 4, Weston is 2. We farm here in the very southwest corner of Sedgwick County, in the Clearwater area. We grow wheat, corn, soybeans, cotton, and have a cow-calf operation.
You are both on the YF&R planning committee. Can you talk just a little bit more about that committee, who was all involved in that?
Yeah, so it was all the second-year YF&R committee members, which is the even district committee members throughout the state. There's 10 of us, 10 couples, or 5 couples, 10 total, that make up that group of people. And we spent quite a few hours and late nights brainstorming all the different things we would have liked to have done. And I think overall it was a really good conference. So I think the group did a really good job.
Yeah, so you guys just came off of the 3-day event of the Young Farmers and Ranchers Leadership Conference. It sounded like you guys had a lot of fun and informative sessions packed into those 3 days. But can you just give us an overall kind of reach the high points of this year's conference?
Yeah, so we opened Friday night at the Shamrock Zone there at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, in between the stadium and Bramlage Coliseum. We had YF&R conference plastered all over the big boards in the corners of the stadium, and that was a fun night. The KFB staff did a fantastic job putting a night together of fun. We really enjoyed that. We had good competitions at the collegiate level and at the YF&R level. We had good participants there, and I felt like we had really good workshops throughout the day there on Saturday, and Sunday morning our keynote speaker was excellent.
So you were both very excited about that kickoff event in the Shamrock Zone. Tell us a little bit more about everything that you guys did that night.
So Leanne there in the office, I don't know who else was involved with it, her and Edie, put together some fun games to kind of get all the different districts competing against each other. And we had some fun games they went from Flip Cup to a trivia, and we had a ton of fun interacting with everybody from our district to partake in those events.
As you look back on your role as the chairman, what were some personal highlights from this year's conference?
So myself personally, I got to chair a couple of rooms of the discussion meet. I got to timekeep the discussion meet when we were at AFBF as part of the committee, and we got to repeat a couple of the questions there. And it was really fun for me to see the young folks tackle the issues that were in front of us, and really get to see some of the bright young faces that'll hopefully be coming through Kansas Farm Bureau for years to come here.
For sure. That sounds like a great contest. Now that we have 2024 YF&R over, what can we get excited about for the next year?
So I think here we have our first meeting again here in March, and the next group of folks will start planning their conference for next year. I'm not sure what they have ideas for, what they're going to want to expand upon or change or do, but I know they're going to be working hard at that over the next year. I think we'll have some district events in everybody's district across the state. I know that has been a conversation amongst the committee. So I would say for any of you young YF&R folks, keep an eye out for any district events, localized events coming throughout the next, 8-9 months. I think there will be some of those throughout the state. And so that would be something to look forward to from a from a standpoint of getting another event or social gathering with your YF&R age folks.
Awesome. Well, Michael, is there anything else you'd like to add today?
I don't think so. I just want to, thank everybody that came, and all the people that came and presented and worked workshops, and thank all the KFB staff that did tons and tons of work that nobody ever knows about. They did a fantastic job putting that all together, and really appreciated all of that, all their help, and all the people that came and made it a fun weekend.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me here on Inside Ag. If you are interested in either of these events, be sure to reach out to your county coordinator to find new ways to get involved in Kansas Farm Bureau. Again, I'm your host, Savannah Peterson, here on Inside Ag. If you like this episode, be sure to share it with your friends.